Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with a severe weather outlook and discussion recorded on April 25th, 2023, recorded on 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to jump into today, so starting off here with the visible satellite imagery over the contiguous United States. We notice that most of the U.S. is pretty quiet right now. However, we do have some interesting weather shaping up for portions of the United States over the next couple of days. Taking a look here at the day one convective outlook, we have two areas for severe weather interest today. First of all, starting from left to right, we have a slight risk for severe storms generally from portions of Texas and Oklahoma down to places like near San Antonio, Austin, and Houston. Marginal risk into portions of Colorado. And then we have a marginal risk for severe storms today out across the Florida Peninsula. As you may know, yesterday we had a couple of pretty significant severe weather reports here in Florida. Another chance for severe weather today, marginal risk from about Orlando and Lakeland all the way down to near places like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Bay, and Melbourne. And then the day two convective outlook, again starting from left to right, we have an enhanced risk for severe storms from near the Waco and Dallas-Fort Worth area, with a slight risk to near Shreveport, near Austin, and near Ardmore, Oklahoma. Marginal risks surrounding that well into portions like Oklahoma City and into portions of southwestern Arkansas and Louisiana. Marginal risk also for severe storms generally along the Interstate 95 corridor and roughly from about Orlando, Miami, all the way up to near Macon and Savannah, Georgia for day two, which is tomorrow, and a general thunderstorm risk surrounding that. So looking at the zoomed in risk area for today, again, we've got that slight risk for severe storms, generally from just northwest of the Houston metro region through about the DFW area and just west of there, Austin, near San Antonio, and up into portions of southwestern Oklahoma. Marginal risk from near Amarillo, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. General thunderstorm surrounding that. Tornado threat for today is going to be a little bit different from what we were talking about yesterday. We noticed that the 5% area is actually shifted further towards the west, and that 2% area goes into portions of Colorado. But generally speaking, our severe weather threat is going to be maximized, I think, in the late overnight hours, and we'll talk about why that is here in a second. But a threat for tornadoes does exist all the way down to San Antonio, Houston, and the DFW area. Hail probability as well, 15%, meaning 15% chance of seeing a hailstone that is larger than 1 inch in diameter in places like Austin, Texas, close to the DFW Metroplex, and into far southwestern Oklahoma. 5% region surrounding that. Wind probability, not seeing any significant threat for damaging winds today. However, this whole marginal risk area has a threat of seeing some isolated damaging wind gusts upwards of 60 miles per hour. But looking at the dew points, this was taken at around 9:30 Eastern Time, about 8:30 Central Time. We noticed that the greater moisture is going to be confined to the south today, and that's going to be the story for the remainder of today. Dew points are only in the 50s out across the majority of this risk area today, and even into the 40s, some 45s up here closer towards, the I-40 corridor up here. So the reason for this is because our winds are actually mostly blowing out of the east today out across this area. We're not seeing a lot of trajectories out of the south, which would pull this moisture northward. And so we thought this might happen yesterday, where we get these trajectories to change out of the south, and they will to a degree, but we're not going to see a strong moisture return cycle today. And because of that, our threats are going to be mainly limited with how much moisture we can get pulled up further towards the north. So our lift for today is also going to be fairly marginal. It is going to be mainly confined across this northern area, and that's because we have a disturbance, kind of a trough up here that is increasing large-scale rising motion out across the northern part of this risk area. And then down to the south, there's really nothing that I'm seeing in the modeling that even suggest a really high-end threat through later tonight. I think most of the weather might even come after 7 a.m. tomorrow morning out across the southern part of this risk area. Instability as well is going to be pretty marginal. Now, values will increase with time as we progress throughout the remainder of today, but not by much. This is for later this afternoon, and you can even see that, we're having weak instability pulled all the way northward, but your better instability values are going to be confined to where the better moisture is, which is going to be really along Interstate 10 here and southward for the majority of today. Maybe getting as far north as I-20, but probably not seeing these 55 dew point values creep much more towards the north than that throughout the day today. So again, instability, only moderate. Again, the southern part of this risk area is going to be coinciding with our greatest tornado threat, I think. Again, 5% area from Interstate 20 northward to just south of Interstate 40. But I think this is more conditional and especially more so focused, I think, for tomorrow, which we'll talk about here in a second. Now, the shear values are going to be quite high across the board, especially as we get in through later this evening. Low-level jet increases and that flow begins to deepen. But generally speaking, again, shear doesn't really mean much if you don't have storms and surface-based storms really for tornadoes. So again, while there is going to be strong shear in place across most of the entire risk area, I think our better chances for severe storms will probably come actually after 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So if you actually look here at the model forecast, this is the 12Z HRRR, and we'll just kind of run on the reflectivity here just real quickly. Again, you notice this actually goes through about 0Z this evening, so this is 7 p.m. Central Time. We notice that there is a couple of isolated discrete cells that do form out here towards the south, and that coincides again with very weak forcing. If we actually look at the hodograph here, what we're going to notice is, again, there's not a lot of forcing. Instability is going to be less, and because of that, you're going to have just an overall less threat for storms to develop. But what we do notice is there's a very nice curved hodograph here. Not strong flow in the low levels, but enough flow that supercells could exist in this environment and produce a tornado. And especially that deep low-level flow is going to be quite impressive. And I do think that there is going to be at least some threat that we could see an isolated tornado develop down here, kind of close towards the Houston area as we progress throughout the evening. Couple of storms trying to fire out here. This is now getting towards about midnight into the day tomorrow. Now, if we look here at the NAM 3 kilometer, again, kind of the same overall idea. Couple of storms tried to develop, but just not really much luck throughout the day today into early tomorrow. And that is why, again, there is a very conditional tornado risk and severe weather threat today out across this entire slight risk area. It is very conditional. It seems probable that at least one to maybe several storms may form somewhere in this broad risk area, but overall coverage is going to be quite less today. Again, NAM 3 kilometer does suggest a few storms developing, but looking at a sounding kind of from Central Texas, we notice that it is mainly going to be elevated if this were to verify on the NAM 3 kilometer. So again, confidence level, there is high confidence through about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning that someone in this risk area is going to see damaging wind and or large hail. I think that that is not a given, but that is certainly more of a possibility as we head throughout the evening. Certainly, I think the risk won't be maximized until very late evening into the overnight. Tornado threat, I think, is just very conditional. Again, just based off of everything. Not a lot of instability to work with, especially the further north you get. And certainly that moisture is going to be tapering off quite quickly. So I don't think the tornado threat is going to be as high. Pretty low confidence in seeing any more than 2 tornadoes, I think, somewhere within that risk area. Flooding, moderate concern. Any training storms or any storm that just sits over one area could produce some heavy rainfall and lead to localized flooding concerns. Now, for the day tomorrow, there's an enhanced risk for severe storms. This runs from just about the I-20 corridor and the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex north of Waco, Texas. Slight risk from near Ardmore, Oklahoma, the Interstate 35 corridor near Austin and to near Shreveport, and a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk from Oklahoma City down to near Houston and into central Louisiana. Tornado threat tomorrow localized around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so really no significant tornado threat or no appreciable tornado threat to the north of there, 5% area, meaning you have a 5% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given point near the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex with a 30% wind probability. So there is a significant wind threat going into the day tomorrow, and I think tomorrow is probably going to be the better severe weather day, not only with obviously the categorical enhanced risk, but generally speaking, the overall synoptic pattern, which we're going to get into here in just a minute, looks a lot more favorable for severe weather. And also hail potential tomorrow, 15% from just the north of Austin to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, Ardmore, Oklahoma, and into surrounding vicinities along the Interstate 20 corridor. Now, moisture quality for tomorrow is going to be a lot better. We're going to have stronger moisture, and this is as a response of a low-level cyclone that is going to form a surface low that is developing tomorrow with an attendant dry line and warm front, which means that you're going to have overall better moisture to be pumped northward during the day tomorrow. So it seems likely that during the late morning into afternoon, we're going to have this moisture start to surge northward as this low-level cyclone, as the surface low begins to take shape. Pretty weak moisture further towards the north, although there will be some overrunning here, leading to some convection likely out across the northern areas here in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Fayetteville, and Little Rock. These would all be non-severe elevated. And of course, you got your classic dry line here. Very dry air, about 20-degree dew points out here to the west of that dry line. Again, lifting tomorrow is going to be maximized. It's really going to be maximized out across really this northern end here, because you've got general troughiness over here helping to increase large-scale ascent, but also that lift is going to be maximized just along and to the north of the warm front. Again, pretty weak forcing down towards the south, but can't rule out a couple of isolated severe storms. But generally speaking, it seems like the better ingredients will be from just about Waco northward and just to and along that warm front for tomorrow. And that is going to be where the better instability is going to be maximized. Again, low to almost zero Cape north of this warm front, but south of this warm front, we're talking mixed layer Cape values that could be approaching about 3,000 joules per kilogram within this vicinity, meaning explosive thunderstorm development if any storms can get going in this atmosphere tomorrow, along with some pretty strong shear for tomorrow as well. Again, mainly maximized right along that warm frontal position, just along into the north of Dallas. So again, although the strongest shear will not coincide along the risk area for tomorrow, there is still some moderate shear just along that Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and that's why there's that 5% tornado risk, because the combination of strong shear, high moisture, and what seems to be some pretty strong Cape as well. Looking at the overall model forecast for tomorrow, the NAM 3 kilometer again brings this cluster of thunderstorms from what seems to be developing during the late overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. Cluster of storms developing there, but generally speaking, it seems like this will probably not be the centralized threat. It seems like that starts to develop here late into the day tomorrow, and you've kind of got this little mesoscale convective system developing, isolated discrete supercells in this environment. And if we look at a NAM 3 kilometer hodograph here and skew-T diagram, we notice large Cape here, large, pretty decent 3 Cape, meaning efficient stretching in the low levels. Little wonky hodograph here, so again, tornado threat might be somewhat skewed. If we actually go back and look here at the HRRR, we notice kind of a similar evolution, but maybe some more semi-discrete elements going into the overnight tomorrow. So a lot to kind of look at here. Again, I think tomorrow is going to be the higher end day for sure. Again, more of a high risk or a high risk level confidence for wind and hail tomorrow. Tornado threat, I do think there is going to be that threat, especially maximized near the DFW Metroplex. And I think flooding could also be a concern too, especially after any storms tonight and any training storms tomorrow could produce some pretty big flooding, especially if it just sits there for particular hours. So we'll be watching for this threat again. Not anything extreme, but certainly something to be attentive to. I think damaging wind is going to be the primary threat, but cannot rule out an isolated tornado or two, especially during the day tomorrow, where I think maybe even a strong tornado could occur near that DFW area, given the combination of low-level shear, instability, and moisture for tomorrow. All right. So that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike O'Malley. I'll be talking to you guys again some more tomorrow.